Well, hello, my friends. We are talking about the 4 phases of building a profitable brand today. It is going to be through the lens of a personal brand, which essentially just means it's brand you. But what I wanted you to know as well is that if you have a small business that has its own name, I mean, I even have that. Like you can see my logo up there, the personal branding project, these rules tend to still apply. It's just that sometimes personal branding can be a little bit more challenging because of all the mindset stuff. Like there is nowhere to hide with a business brand or a company brand. You can sometimes hide behind another logo, a business that's not, a website that's not necessarily yours. You might have other team members perhaps, and it's just easy to kind of stay a little bit more hidden. Whereas what you've probably figured out by now is that personal branding, building your own brand, putting your face forward, it's very exposing and it can be quite terrifying. And these 4 phases that we're going to be talking about all bring their own challenges. So we're going to break the 4 different phases down today, give you a few little tips about each one. But then what I'm thinking is that we can do a series where I'm going to break down each one of these phases individually and give you some really practical advice, like some strategy tips, some mindset tips, and kind of warnings of things that tend to get people tripped up at that particular stage of the journey. So I'm excited to be here today. If you're watching the replay, just put Team Replay in the chat, and let's just get going. So first things first, you don't have to guess what stage of this personal branding process you're in, because I created a quiz that can do that for you. So I'll give you the link. So basically, if you haven't taken it yet, this quiz will ask you a bunch of questions. It takes about like 90 seconds to do the quiz, and it's going to tell you approximately, obviously there are still some nuances that aren't, I can't perfect, but what stage of the process you're in, and gives you a ton of advice based on that current stage to basically what you're going to need to do in order to get to the next stage. So rather than watching this whole thing and being like, who am I? Where am I at? I highly recommend you take the quiz and find out what your type is, or what phase you're in. And then it's going to give you a little bit more of an idea of what to pay attention to today. But I do think it's a really good idea to know where you're going in this process, because it allows you to kind of anticipate some of the challenges that are definitely going to come up. Like, honestly, there's no way of avoiding these challenges. And just knowing what ones to expect, and know that they're not necessarily, it's not your fault. You're not doing something wrong. It's just part of the process. So I'd love to know, if you have already taken the quiz, what phase are you in right now? Put that in the chat, even if you're watching the replay, because I will be coming back and checking the comments later on, and just let me know, and it'll just give me an idea of where you're at. So let's talk about the overarching journey of building a personal brand. So the 4 phases that, at least I've come up with this myself. Like, if you disagree, that is completely fine. This is just my own process. It's what I've experienced personally, and I've really seen my clients go through such similar journeys as well. So it just made it easier to kind of categorize these things so that we have more clarity on what to focus on at each stage of the journey, rather than feeling like we need to do all of the things at once, which is actually, spoiler alert, one of the biggest things that trips anyone up. So the first stage is industry's best kept secret. So essentially, it's pretty obvious what it means. Basically, you are amazing at what you do. Like, you've got so much passion, you've got skill, you might even have a ton of experience, but not many people know you exist yet. So maybe the clients that you have worked with are like, holy crap, how had I not heard about you before? Like, you've changed my life. Or you just kind of know in your own circle or in your own mind that you have so much value to offer, but people don't know that yet. So it can be obviously a really frustrating. Oh, I need to change my little banner. Here we go. So fancy. So it can be a bit of a frustrating, disheartening point in the journey sometimes. Although when you're first getting started, it can also be the most exciting, because the world is your oyster at this point. There's everything is ahead of you. A lot of people will be at this phase when they're, side hustling, and you haven't even decided to necessarily leave your job yet. It might be when you're building your business from scratch, or you're pivoting. So it's a pretty cool stage to be at. But I know it can also also be a little bit overwhelming at times because you're like, where do I even start? Like, it feels like there is so much to achieve and so much to do. So we'll circle back to some practical tips because I just want to first give you the big picture of where this is all going. The second phase is personal brand. Oh, it's meant to be personal brand in progress, not personal branding. I'm just going to fix that because OCD. Um, so personal brand in progress is where you are actually starting to gain some traction. So, you're feeling a little bit more confident, like you've got some clients behind you. Maybe you're starting to get a little bit of a following. You have a little bit more clarity around like how to introduce yourself. Maybe you have a solid website, your messaging starting to get there. It's obvious that you've been laying some really important groundwork, but you don't necessarily have all of the money in the bank to prove it just yet, or you don't have a steady stream of leads. It still feels like a little bit of a slog, but you have definitely achieved more than you realize. But I think at this phase, what tends to happen is you've done so much already, you have achieved so much, but because it's not the results that you want to have, the stuff that excites you, like having a big following and having tons and tons of money pouring in, a giant wait list, you kind of beat yourself up because you think, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing it well enough, I must be failing. So this is a kind of the danger zone for being a personal brand in progress. It's like you've come so far and yet, there's still so far to go. Trust me. I know this feeling. In fact, sometimes that feeling doesn't seem to go away no matter how far you go, just warning you. But once we start moving from personal brand in progress, the next step is becoming the go-to expert in your niche. Now, funnily enough, a lot of people think this is the ultimate. But there is one extra step you might have noticed. This is phase number 3, not phase number 4, which means there isn't a phase that's going to be coming after this. So go to expert in your niche. It's awesome when you've done this. Like this doesn't happen by accident. It is a result of consistently showing up, talking about the same things, making sure you get known for that one thing, having lots of social proof, having, lots of happy clients, probably a lot of evidence of what you do all around the internet, great quality content that you have been creating. People are talking about you. You're probably noticing you're getting a lot more referrals at this stage. In other words, people are doing advertising for you, which is amazing. But you're still kind of like, there's still this feeling of there's more to go. Like you're not quite there yet. You're like, how is it possible? Like I'm doing so well. I am actually like, I feel like there is demand building for what I do and I have so much clarity, but you have this hunger for what's next. And there is something that comes next. So being an expert, the go-to expert, it sounds like it's a really difficult thing to achieve. Funnily enough, it's not as difficult as you think. A lot of it is about consistency and patience, like really just showing up again and again and again. Like almost anyone can establish themselves as an expert if they have enough knowledge about something, okay? But the really meaningful phase, the phase that we're all actually aiming for, well, at least I think so. I think the reason that you're in this group and potentially watching this video right now, it's in-demand brand. So an in-demand brand, it goes so far beyond just people wanting to work with you. It's beyond just having money in the bank. It's about really having the impact that you have always dreamed of. This is when you feel your vision actually coming to life. You're seeing the ripple effect of what happens when you help enough people and how that starts to kind of spread. You're seeing how much your lifestyle gets to change and even your own business gets to change as a result of this work. Like maybe you're actually creating jobs for other people because you're hiring people and you're getting to step more into that visionary role as opposed to just being the person who is slogging away and doing all the work in your business. The difference really with how we're showing up on social, even on stages, maybe you're even writing a book, is that this is true thought leadership. You're no longer worrying about what anyone else is doing. You're not trying to impress. You're not trying to check the boxes. You have fully owned and embodied your message, and you're just sharing from this place of just wanting to serve, almost being unfiltered, not worrying about what happens, what people think, if you're going to be completely honest and share in a way that you've never shared before. It's freedom. It's real freedom in your brand. And generally, if you have set I'm saying generally, but really part of being an in-demand brand is making sure you also have those foundations laid in your business that allow you to scale. So this is where there is no scrambling going, oh my gosh, how much am I going to be earning next month? Like, you can predict how much you're earning. You have got things going on autopilot, potentially having passive or, asynchronous forms of income coming in. So like you build something and then it keeps bringing in money in the future. It's a whole different way of living. And this is where you really start to understand that you are just in a league of your own. I don't believe there is any competition for anyone as long as you start to really understand how unique you are and to really embody and embrace your strengths and your points of difference and live your values and all of that. But it can be really difficult to not look around and feel the fact that, oh wow, there are so many people kind of claiming that they do such a similar thing to me. So I find that in those first 3 phases even, there's a lot of those like mindset demons that are kind of just going, oh, that person's doing it better than you, and oh, have you seen what that person's doing? But when you're an in-demand brand, there is none of that. It's just like, you just own your space, and it's awesome. So this is the journey of where you're going, and you should know that the timeline is going to be different for everybody. For some people, it's going to be to do with how much time you have to dedicate to what you're doing. For some of us, we have to pivot a lot of times. Like, you might launch a business and realize this isn't quite right. This isn't the niche that I want to be in, and then you need to tweak it and you need to tweak it. I've had a frustrating, but I'm trying to embrace the whole process. Experience where it's like externally my visibility and my brand kind of like really gave me this huge head start where a lot of people were finding me really easily. Like I hit that go-to expert status relatively quickly, just because the amount of content that I was creating and things, and hopefully it was because it was good content, not just volume. But what I hit kind of a ceiling for myself where I realized, oh crap, those foundations that I missed, that I mentioned before, where you're actually set up to scale and to kind of automate more of what you're doing and have a team that can support you. Well, I kind of wasn't thinking about that. I was just all external focused on like, okay, I need to build an audience, I need to create content. And behind the scenes, my business was a little bit of a mess. And so I've gone almost into hiding, which is, you may have noticed, I've been a little bit quiet this year. Because I have so much work to do behind the scenes to ensure those systems are set up and that my business is actually ready to scale. So tweaking my customer journey and my offering suite, and there's all these things, because that was actually stopping me from fully embodying that in-demand brand status. So, it's not, even though this sounds like a linear journey, we know that's not how life works. That's not how business works. We're going to have like growth spurts, and then we're going to feel like you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Really, if you zoom out, eventually 2020 hindsight is going to show you are always making progress. Every single experience that you're having is really getting you to where you need to be. It's helping you meet the people that are going to change your life, giving you the awareness and the knowledge and the wisdom that you need to reach that next phase. So it's just important to really acknowledge that you are doing the work and to really trust the process. But I guess that's also why I'm here today, is that I know that when it feels like there is no process, when you don't actually know what you need to do at each phase, like, how can you trust a process that feels like it doesn't exist? So that is where I hope that I come in for you, is showing you that there is some method to this madness, that there are specific things that we can be focusing on at each stage of the journey, things that we need to try and avoid. I mean, I've made every mistake in the book, okay? And I don't necessarily regret it, because every one of those mistakes gave me what I needed to get to the next thing. And also it's helping me help you in a bigger way these days. But I feel like my sort of 5-year learning curve with this stuff could be shrunk down into like 1 year potentially, if you have help, which is why I've created a framework around what I do. Like literally my in-demand brand blueprint breaks down these steps. And I'm also getting more granular with that and starting to go, okay, well, can I help industry's best kept secrets in a more specific way, at the very beginning. So what we'll do, anyways, before I get carried away, we'll talk some just practical tips. But I would love to know if this is resonating, if it's helping. If you are excited for me to do a little series where we actually break break down each one of those phases into a little bit more detail with some sort of practical strategy as well as mindset tips. But I'll give you some quick fire things to just kind of keep in mind at the moment. From 1 to 4. So industry's best kept secret, some practical advice. So this is the phase where, because there's so much ahead of you and you're often comparing yourself to someone who's further along in the journey, you think, well, okay, they've got the fancy website, they're creating all this content, they're doing this, they're doing that. Therefore, I probably need to do all those things in order to get to that phase. But it's actually backwards. They got to that phase because they laid foundations that allowed them to get there. And then once they're at that phase, they were able to up the ante and get more sort of like fancy with what they were doing. So what I want you to have a think about with if you are in that industry's best kept secret phase, and as I said, if you haven't taken the quiz yet to find out where you're at, go take the quiz. It'll be very helpful. It'll take the guesswork out of this. But I want you to think simple. So you can absolutely get away in this first phase. I want you focusing on landing clients, getting some money in the bank, getting some experience behind you. Because funnily enough, one of the biggest reasons imposter syndrome can kick in later phases is because you didn't take the time to get that experience that gave you the confidence to believe that you have value to offer in those later stages. If you get way too caught up in building a fancy website, creating all this content, charging premium prices before you have the experience, imposter syndrome is just it's going to take you out. So I want you to keep it simple. You can focus just on sales. Like, what is your service offering, or what is the product that you're selling at this phase? And how can you just get in front of the right people? Then when you get in front of the right people, you become better at what you do. You get feedback from them, you get some social proof, and you start to get clear on, okay, maybe this is the niche that I need to fit in. You don't need all the answers at the beginning. You just need to start. Okay, I had no idea when I became a copywriter. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just said yes to everything, threw myself into every job that I could get. And it was just the year of yes. And then I started to see what I was enjoying more, what I was better at. And I started to narrow down my focus and put up my prices. And that's when I started to think more about sort of building a brand for myself. But I literally did not have a website for the first year of my business. And I ended up making a full-time income on copywriting in my first year because I just focused on landing clients and making them happy. So that is my advice for industry's best kept secrets: is keep it simple and just focus on landing clients and don't overcomplicate this process. Once you're moving into the personal brand in progress, that's when we get to start kind of finessing things a little bit. This is where I want you really getting clarity on your vision and your mission. Who is that ideal person that you really want to serve? How can we really kind of formulate a signature offering for you that is, very profitable and is enjoyable and really delivers tons of value, but also brings in the revenue that you need. This is where you're going to start nailing down your messaging as well. Because when you have that clarity, it's easier to know what to say about yourself. And that's also when it makes it way easier to create a website and to be creating a lot of content, because you know what you're talking about. I don't want you just like creating random things, throwing spaghetti at the wall. It's not helpful. It's going to be so much better if you wait till you have a little bit of clarity before you take some of these steps. So that's what I want you to do as a personal brand in progress. Don't get it carried away. You don't have to be achieving everything. And know that it's not, if you're not getting tons of traffic yet, if you're not getting tons of followers, that's okay. That will come. My number one piece of advice that I always give, and it's been life-changing advice for me, is focus on the 1% work, because in time, that is what's going to lead to compound interest. Compound interest is like where it just keeps snowballing and snowballing just from you doing that tiny little thing every single day. So as a personal brand in progress, if you can be really clear on what is that thing I'm just going to keep chipping away at, know that that momentum is actually what's going to get you to become the go-to expert in your niche. Like for me, it was committing to creating those 100 videos on YouTube, which got me known, and it was starting to talk about the same topics over and over again on Instagram. Like those kinds of things paid off in the time, while I was doing it, did not feel like I was getting meaningful results. But because I committed to 100 videos, not 100 followers or subscribers or 1,000 subscribers, like the goal was in my control and I was able to get there and I did it. Okay, so that is what really gets you to go to expert in your niche. But while this is happening, we need to be thinking about your business. Where are you wanting to take it? Laying some crucial foundations and systems and starting to think about, okay, am I trying to DIY everything when it's actually time for me to bring on some help? So it's going to free me up to get to the next stage. Because when you're an in-demand brand, like you are spending your time in flow. If you are doing like like the nitty gritty tasks, the stuff that either bores you or keeps you busy, something that you could outsource for much cheaper than what you want to get paid per hour, then you're taking yourself out of being an in-demand brand. Like we need to keep you in your zone of genius, sharing from a place of just like authenticity and joy and excitement and not being bogged down in all the details. So really, while you're in that go-to expert phase, don't get carried away and think all I need is more followers, all I need is more revenue, I just need a funnel. No, like we need to make sure that your business is running like clockwork and it's not all relying on you to do that work. And then it all starts to fall into place when you become that in-demand brand. So I'm going to leave it at that for today because there's so much more I could say, but we're going to dive into these in future episodes. But I hope this was helpful. As I said, go take the quiz. Come back and comment and tell me what phase of the journey you're in, and let me know like where are you struggling in particular, and where do you feel like you're doing really well, so that I can give you some some custom tips and just celebrate your progress with you. Thanks to everyone who is here live. Hello to my team replay, and I look forward to seeing you really soon. Have a fantastic rest of your week and enjoy your weekend. Bye.